Welcome to Bleav in Colts, where Lawrence Owen and DeQuell Jackson brings you everything about the shoe.
Welcome back. We are back again, Colts Nation, with another edition of Bleav in Colts podcast. And I'm Lawrence Owen. With me, as usual, DeQuell Jackson. How was your week, DeQuell?
Pretty interesting. As you can see, my backdrop is a little bit different behind me. I'm traveling a little bit, but I'm always ready to talk some sports and talk about these Colts and how they were able to play a meaningful game against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night. However, as we all know, they came up short. They played a hard-fought game, but there's so much to talk about with this game. Giving up, as a defender, it crushes me to see these guys have such a great lead and dominated most of the game, and to lose a 19-point, margin in the fourth quarter is just heartbreaking and just indicative of what this season has been for our Colts.
This is the second game this year. The Colts are now 1-4. In my opinion, I feel like the Indianapolis Colts legitimately should be, had they not made weird mistakes in certain places, they should be at minimum 3-2 right now, because I feel like they should have beat the Ravens, and I feel like they should have beat the Rams.
Yes.
And now we're sitting in a precarious position, very similar to that 2018 season when Andrew Luck, with that 1-5 and make the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of stuff does not happen every year. That's so rare in the NFL. But if you look at the schedule for the Indianapolis Colts, we just got through the meat of the schedule, literally. When you look at the teams that the Colts played, the first 5 weeks, all these teams had 10-plus wins last year. And we played the majority of them, even with the injuries that we have, because let's face it, injuries are not, you can't use them as an excuse, because every team goes through them, right? It's that next man up mentality. You got to be ready for that. But looking forward, the Colts really have to start putting things to business if they have any inclination of getting even a divisional title or making the playoffs at this point, right?
Yeah, it's really tough right now in that locker room, and they're literally taking it week to week, and we've discussed it before. In this business, whether you're 4-1 or 1-4, you literally have to approach every game as it matters, and it does. And for them to dig themselves out of this hole, it's encouraging, right? The last 2 weeks have been encouraging from an offensive standpoint. Carson Wentz felt he was still under siege a bit, but he was still able to make throws. We had some guys make some really big plays. All the running backs contributed on the ground, catching the ball out of the backfield. Michael Pittman Jr. had a heck of a catch. And it was just big play after big play, and it just juiced and energized the entire team, something that's been missing, something that we hadn't seen all year. However, this defense, I said it some shows ago, when you've been put in a situation when your offense is struggling, and even though everyone's deemed you to have this great defense and all, adding pieces, and a guy like DeForest Buckner has had a slow start this year, and we're, in terms of quarterback hits, we rank towards the bottom in the league. We're not generating pressure. It all kind of unfolds because of the position you've been put in early in the season, because of, as you mentioned, some injuries. We're not going to make excuses, but it put a lot of strain on the defense. And you saw them we talked about it before, they got gassed. They got tired. Yeah. They got tired. And it shows up. It doesn't show up until it shows up. And it's in critical points of the game. And this team is going to have to find a way to finish and play 4 quarters. Right now, we've seen 3 really good quarters of this football team, and it's there. They just got to find a way to keep that momentum and to finish out games to play 4 quarters.
We talk about it all the time, being that we have a good running back core, about how, you run the football to wear out a defense. Well, in this game, Lamar Jackson, even though he wasn't putting up the numbers through the first 3 quarters, He
Let's
was
talk
having
about
an
it.
effect on that defense. He was running all over the field, making them run and making them tired until
It's
the fourth quarter.
exhausting. Oh, it's exhausting to run behind a guy who's I hate to say this, he's a running back. That's a thrower. It's so difficult. It doesn't matter. If Flus is calling a zone coverage and you're a linebacker and you're in that gray area to 10 to 12 yards and you feel the pocket start to break down and you feel like Lamar is leaving the pocket because he's such a great athlete, Lawrence, you're more inclined to leave your responsibility, whether it be the curl flat, the hook curl, you're more prone to try to cut off and to make up as much ground as possible to cut Lamar Jackson off. And when that happens, Lamar has figured out how guys are playing him. Now he's able to manipulate the coverages, and it strains you as a defense, and it's so difficult to play a guy that's a former MVP, and like you said, we had him bottled up for most of the game, and then he just unloaded.
Yeah. My thought process while watching the game. Now, watching the game is one thing because you have that knee-jerk reaction, and seeing the game film is one thing. And like I was talking about the all-22 drop today, I got to see the all-22 of the game, and my perspective of the game completely changed.
Absolutely.
My blame changed. We were talking about earlier, about being gassed but here's another issue that we were talking beforehand that I want to bring back up. Before we was recording, we were discussing this. There was a lot of injuries, right, on the secondary.
Yes.
A lot of our we had a couple practice squad
Great
guys
point.
out there, things of that nature in the fourth quarter. And when something like that happens, I brought up that you got to change how you cover at this point. You got to change your game plan because of the inexperience you have out there on the field.
I can see the smoke just looming from your head right now.
Exactly. What was your response to that when I said that? What was your response to that? Because I think you made an excellent point.
Yeah, I was frustrated. I was very frustrated because in one particular instance that you're alluding to was the overtime drive, right? With Lamar Jackson. Now he's, obviously he's showing us why he was a one-time MVP. He's showing us, he's putting it on display in front of the entire world to witness. And to add to your point about, you had some injuries in the back end of the defense. So, you as a coordinator, and I'm going to imagine I'm Flus for a second, you want to switch things up. My reaction to that is, every cornerback in the National Football League can play man coverage. You would not be in the NFL if you cannot play man coverage, whether you're a corner, a safety, a nickelback, a linebacker. Everyone knows how to play man coverage. And in that moment, that particular moment in overtime, is what we call a gotta have it moment. They have to score to win. And when I saw our defense playing soft zone coverage and back-to-back plays, it pissed me off because now you have the inexperience in the back end with all the injuries. Now guys don't really know how to work off of each other in zone coverage. And the way I was taught how to play zone coverage in the red zone backed up, it's called a zone matchup concept. If a guy runs in your zone, it's very simple. He's now your man. And I hate to do this because he's such a great player for us and he means so much to this franchise and this year because he plays his ass off, plays his heart out. Darius Leonard. It wasn't his fault. I'm not going to say that, but what I saw watching that film was his inexperience. From this moment, I promise you, from this moment, he's gone back and he's watched this tape. This is a teaching moment. Because between Darius Leonard and the safety behind him, they were in no man's land. Hollywood Brown hit. So if I can paint this picture, Hollywood Brown runs an in-breaking route. Darius Leonard cuts it off. But what Darius Leonard didn't do is look behind him, feel where Hollywood Brown is. Now he becomes your man. Instead, his eyeballs were on Lamar Jackson, which is a sign of inexperience. The safety behind him, eyes were on Lamar Jackson, which is inexperienced. And guess what? It's a throw and catch, a practice throw and catch. And is it their fault? Yeah, they were out there playing the game. They scored on this defense, but I have to turn my blame to Flus. Got to have it moment. You have to match up. Every guy can play this coverage. At the very least, you have some sort of a cover 5 concept where you have 2 safeties. You bracket someone. There was none of that going on, which was mind blowing to me. And you got my blood boiling because I couldn't fathom why this team was playing such soft coverage when you're backed up. That's not how the game is supposed to be played.
Pardon me. Another situation that I was noticing, again, in my opinion, this goes on Flus. This does not go on the players because I feel like the players were doing exactly what Flus was asking them to do, right?
Right.
And that is the pass rush, your front 4. Now, in the first 3 quarters, they did what they needed to do. When in a situation like Lamar Jackson, you're playing reactionary. You're keeping your eyes up. You box them in. You got your 2 defensive tackles that are holding their spots at the bottom of the line. Your outside pass rushers come around to the outside, get to about the level of where the quarterback is, and then you wait. You hope that the defensive tackles make the pressure, and then your defensive ends come in and make the kill shot. Right. That's because if a defensive end breaks in, then you're leaving this open spot for Lamar to come out and he's gone.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
And so I seen that, and that was very smart, and it worked great for 3 quarters. But in doing that for 3 straight quarters against Lamar Jackson, you wear out that defensive line. Those guys, these are 250, 300 pound plus guys that are out there trying to chase Lamar Jackson down for an hour. Okay.
Right.
Good luck with that. Okay.
Right.
So in the 4th quarter, after Lamar basically walks the field for that touchdown, right? And just he was just doing as will. I was like, this is where Flus needs to change that scheme up. This is where he needs to start making his ends and his tackles get in after the quarterback, no matter what, right? If you leave a gap, you leave a gap. You get him out of his safety spot, out of his comfort zone, to where he could just sit back there for that extra second or 2 because they're gassed. It's hard to get past those offensive linemen and wait for his guys to hit that soft spots in the zone. You gotta get that pressure on him at that point. Make him make a play. Don't allow him to sit there and just pick you apart.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and a lot of it comes with substitutions. You gotta get those guys out. You mentioned these are 300-pound guys running behind one of the fastest, most athletic guys in the National Football League. What I noticed that didn't happen was, which typically happens when a team is driving down the field and it's 2nd or 3rd down and it's overtime game, then a timeout happens. At some point, you got to say, this is overtime. You got to burn one. You got to give you guys a break. If you're not going to have a massive change on the D-line standpoint and sub those guys out, because when Lamar Jackson gets to running and juking and crossing fields, that's tiring for everyone. It's time for me to watch, let alone be on the field.
Right.
So you have to do a better job. Obviously, Kwity Paye was out. You had some guys that were, DeForest Buckner, who we brought up. He has to get back on track. It's definitely, they have to go back to the drawing board. They have to figure out, okay, who are we as a defense? How can we, change things up? Because listen, Lamar Jackson's an MVP player. I can't say that enough. If you give him the same look over and over and over, not only is he going to feel where the softness of the defense is, the guys up top watching the game, they're going to have a different plan. So we have to do a better job of in-game adjustments. And you're exactly right. It's been the tale of the season. When we're in close games, we got to find a way to keep the attack on and find multiple ways to be efficiently, put our players in better positions to be successful. Because again, you can't. The blame is shared amongst the players and the coaches. The players play, the coaches coach. The coaches want to do their best job of putting the players in the right position. Obviously, that wasn't the case on Monday night, which was unfortunate because those guys played a heck of a game for 3 quarters. And to be in that locker room right now, to lose the game in that fashion, to be up 19 points with less than 12 minutes in the game. Again, defense, you take your foot off the calls predicated for them to take your foot off the gas. Now Lamar Jackson gets in more of a rhythm. Now he hits a big play, tight end over the field, crossing route. Now they're gaining momentum. Now all hell sets in. And now I absolutely hate that style of football. And I've been playing in that system forever. Is when you get a lead, let's methodically let the offense just give them what they want to eat the clock. No, let's keep applying the pressure. Let's keep applying pressure. What do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? And you know what? When you play that way, unfortunately, things like this happen when you lose a 19-point lead.
So I had some guys talk about, well, they were still bringing blitzes, but I'm watching this play, and yeah, they would bring a blitz occasionally in the fourth quarter in that overtime drive. But you know how many times I saw 3-man fronts where the defensive ends would fall back into coverage against Lamar Jackson? Why are we doing that? That makes no sense to me at all.
He had a career day. Yeah. He threw for over 400. I want to say 400. Either way, he had a career day.
Absolutely.
I mean, granted, on the other side of the ball, our offense would generated the most points or most yards we've had all season, over 500. Yeah. But yet, the score doesn't reflect that. I wonder why.
Exactly. And another, so we have put the hammer on the defense for the most part of this.
Listen, we have to call it for what it is.
Exactly.
Our offense generated most, over 512 net yards offensively. You should win the football game.
Oh, you would think
again.
So.
We have to look at, Flus in the defense. It's only right when you're able to score points, move the ball, your running game is working, and you have Lamar Jackson, you have them bottled up. And to take your foot off the gas and say, you know what, Baltimore Ravens, you're a good team, but we're just going to let you methodically go down the field. And you know what? I bet you every guy on that football team is looking at Flus a little side eye. This week, it's like, what the hell were you thinking? This is Lamar Jackson.
Right?
This is Lamar Jackson. He can beat us both throwing the football and running the football. And guess what? In one quarter, he was able to have a career day and just embarrass us as a football team.
Well, it's not like we didn't know he couldn't throw for 300 plus yards. The week before, he just had a 300-yard game throwing the football against the Denver defense.
Right. People underestimate his arm strength, and when he's able to throw the ball from the pocket, granted, his accuracy could be a lot better, but every game, he's confident enough to stand in that pocket and make the read and throw the ball down and deliver the ball down the field when when that moment arises. And that's what makes him a great player. And we just let a great player just, have the field to himself, which is frustrating for me to watch.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. But I'm going to kind of move on because of the situation. A lot of fans are throwing blame not on the defense. They're like, well, the defense had a bunch of, practice squad guys and backups, and we only had 3 cornerbacks and 2 safeties. So we had 5 total defensive backs out there. So there was no switching out to have, breathers or anything like that because we only had 5. So I kind of can ease off a little bit on that. But at the same time, there's a lot of fans out there, and I think this is unjustly, but they said the offense took their foot off the gas and should have done a kill shot at the end of the game and didn't. At the end, when they were running it, forcing the Ravens to burn their timeouts, lining up the ball, and then kicking the field goal, going with the hurt kicker, right? But my thought process, I'm sitting there in that specific situation with 4 minutes left in the game, and you're up by a touchdown and a 2-point conversion because you were up 8 at that point, right? If you kick a field goal, game's over. Right. And you're at the 15-yard line, right? My thought is that was the smart move. They're like, oh, you don't put a hurt kicker in there. If you score a touchdown, the game's over. If you kick a field goal, the game's over too at that point. So,
Right.
and the field goal kicker, admittedly, was having hip issues, but he was telling Coach Reich, I'm good for 45. You can count me from 45 the whole game. At that point, when you're the coach, do you trust in the player? Because, I mean, apparently he gets paid to play too. You know, Carson Wentz gets paid to play. He was hurt. He's put in there. You know, you got to rely on him. If he says he's good to go, you're good to go. That's my thought process on that. What's yours?
Yeah, it's amazing when you try to go into a coach's mind and try to rationalize what they were thinking at that time. But you asked a question about, would I trust the player? Now, here's the thing. I would trust the player, but if my offense is clicking the way it is and they're moving the ball down the field and we're having success, I'd rather put my trust in 11 guys than one guy, you know, and he's having hip issues. Hey, if it was a 20-something yarder, I completely understand. You trust your kicker. If he says he can go, he can make this kick, you go and do it. But man, you know, it's just unfortunate how things kind of unfold. And he and that was the win the game, 47 yards to win the game. I just think you should have been more aggressive. You have to be more aggressive as much as you can, at least make it very easy. That isn't an easy kick. You have a young kicker who spends most of his time indoors in a dome kicking, you know, so this was an iffy call from me. I mean, I appreciate I would have gone with the kick, but I would much prefer it be a lot closer, you know, maybe another 20 yards or so. You know, we drive the ball, we stay aggressive offensively, and I have trust in Carson Wentz and that offense to move the ball. And you let them know during that drive, hey, listen, we want to kick a field goal, but we need to get to X. This is something that you practice every week. Every week there's a scenario in practice where we need a field goal to win the game. We need a touchdown to win the game. 2-minute drive, 4-minute offense. These are things that they work on day in and day out, week in and week out at practice. So a 47-yarder, I'm sure Frank Reich knew they had practiced that situation before. I promise you. So he had faith in his decision process, because these coaches are all creatures of habits. They won't do anything they hadn't done before. And in this case, you know, my own personal opinion, I would much prefer to see our offense stay aggressive, get closer. And, you know, if you don't have a touchdown there, then you settle for 3, but not at that distance, you know, especially with your kicker with a hip issues, and it came to bite them back, you know?
Yeah, I get that thought process, but you know, that's one of those kind of feel it moments, I think, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's my worry. 3rd and 8, they ran it up the gut. I think they were running it up the gut at that point to try to set Rodrigo right wherever he wanted to be. And they lost yardage because of it, you know?
Yeah, show faith in your guys. Heck, we had converted a 4th and 11 early in that game.
Oh yeah.
You know, so it's there. We've proven we're not afraid to, you know, go for it on 4th down. I'm not saying go for it on 4th down at that moment, but just be aggressive. What do you have to lose?
Yeah,
you know, when
there was a 3rd and 16 that Jonathan Taylor took to the house on a 76-yarder.
Yes.
So I mean,
those type of things were happening during this game.
Yeah,
your luck, you know, you had a lot of things going in your favor. Why not? But I go back to the point you just made. It's a feel thing. You know, Frank Reich, what do you feel? What do you have you watched the game? What guys can you trust? What, you know, is Carson Wentz, can I put the ball in his hands? Can I design a play for Michael Pittman Jr.? You know what, coaches have to practice that moment as well as the players. And I remember being in Indy at the time, and Chuck Pagano, I love this drill. No one else. And Eric Mangini used to do it. And it was a drill where at some point without practice, the whistle would blow and everyone would have to come up, and the head coach would give you a scenario. Hey, it's a minute 30 in the game left. We're down by a touchdown. We need a touchdown to win the game. Ball's on the 35-yard line. you have one timeout. So those type of, it puts everyone on edge. So you got to go back to the drawing board if you're Frank Wright. You got to find a way to score. First of all, score points in the red zone. That'll clear it all up. So you don't put everything on your hurt kicker. Let's fix that. Let's fix the offense in that area. Be more efficiently there, and so we all win the game and not put it on a kicker, which everyone's hurt playing this game. There's no one not injured. There's no excuse. But he suited up. He dressed to play. He was out there to make the kick. Unfortunately, he came up short.
Well, he went wide left, if I remember right, and that's a big point to think about. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because the previous kick got blocked, right?
Yes.
That one.
Yes.
Campbell. Yeah. Campbell came up there. He got both his paws up there and blocked that sucker. And if you go look at the one where he hooks it left at the end of the game, Campbell got through again and had his paws up there in the air. And those were some big paws, I'm telling you.
Yes.
He's a big dude.
That's one of the biggest humans I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah. So I can see that having an effect because
I'll guarantee if you ask Blankenship, did you see that? Did that affect you? Is that why you hooked it away from him? He'll be like, he ain't going to admit to that. But
no,
you can't miss a dude like that coming in and getting his hands
and
up
muscle
there.
memory. You've gone into the week knowing where Calais Campbell is going to be because he's that guy, the tallest. I don't care if you don't. There's been guys not to be backups that only play special teams, but you know what? They had height and length, and guess what? They were right in the kicking lane for field goal block. So muscle memory would, of course, he knew where Calais Campbell would be, and he diverted his kick away from him. But like you say, he'll never admit that. He'll never admit. I've been around some really, really fantastic kickers: Phil Dawson in Cleveland and Adam Vinatieri and Indy. And to see those guys, the muscle memory that those guys practice with. I've had a chance to have conversations with them and just what goes through your mind, in big moment situations, because as much as we, people may give kickers and punters a hard time, people only know you when you either make a game-winning kick or you miss a game-winning kick. And it's a tough lane to live in, man, but people do it. None of it is easy, but man, we just couldn't catch a break when we needed it.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Because there's multiple different opinions that I see for all over the place about kickers and punters. All right. When it comes to the locker room. Obviously Pat McAfee, he's a well-known guy. He's always for the brand, that type of situation.
Right.
And you have some guys out there that are like, that show are they 280 pounds and super athletic and all this? No, we get that. No. But they're still, do you still look at them as football players, like guys out there? That's my thought process to you.
Yeah, that's some of the coolest guys in the building because they don't have they're not in your defensive meeting room. They're kind of a neutral person to kind of, shed your frustration with. But I've always had a really good relationship with the punters. Dave Zastadale, I go way back, a punter that was really good in Cleveland. Phil Dawson, I have Phil Dawson's jersey framed in my basement. I have when Adam Vinatieri, became the most, the all-time leader in points in NFL history. He gave me his cleats and he signed them. So nice. I've had some guys, they don't think like that. Some guys want no parts of the kicker. Screw them. Like they don't practice and training camp. They're over there, after the first period, they're kind of hanging out. They'll go play golf later. So some guys don't really know what it takes to play that position. But as much as, they're not banging every day or doing those different things, it's a really stressful job to have. And when you're called upon to kick a football, every mechanic, every step has to be on point. And I've always been different. I've always looked at them as part of the team, man. Like I've been around some really good, now because I've been around some really good kickers, I had a different level of respect. Now, if I was with some guys that weren't that good, I probably would think differently. I'm not going to lie. But the guys I've been around, I've been fortunate to be around some kickers and punters that really changed the game. And let me add this one other point, Lawrence. I realized, let's say, Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee, I considered him the 12th man, because if we were backed up or pinned down our offense, he could, boomstick. He could put us in position and pin the offense, pin the opposing offense. So I loved it when he was able to get a good punt, and because it helped us, it helped our team average and all that. So it all plays a part. And now I wasn't one of those guys. I knew you were looking for something juicy here about you respecting the kickers, but no, I got a ton of respect for those guys, man. Hands down.
Yeah, I wasn't looking. I was just curious. I know some players. I've seen it. You see it all the time. These guys ain't real football players.
Yeah,
and then you got other players that are like, well, they help a team. They're in the locker room. You hear their voice. They're talking to. And like you say, they're that neutral party. That you can go and talk to and stuff like that. So absolutely, I get it.
Well, I really don't. During training camp, that's the one time where if I saw Pat or something, if he had a smile on his face, I'm like, what are you smiling about? There's nothing to smile at, because I got to go bang and do 9 on 7, and my fingers hurt, my shoulders hurt. I want to take off all these pads, and he's smiling and cracking jokes, and that's the only time it would piss me off.
Well, because all he has to do is kick about 12 kicks.
And he would
during the day.
Yeah, and see, Pat, he knew how to just really get up under your skin, and he did it intentionally, but it was all fun and games, man. We had a really, really tight relationship. He was my locker mate. We were locker mates. And I don't know if I ever told you this story, but when I first signed my first year in Indy, we were the regular season is starting, and it's like I don't know what week it is, but it's like becoming, those weeks that are piling up. Is like, okay, I got to go into overdrive. And I was one of the first people to arrive at the facility. And Pat was shortly after me all the time. It was like me and him in the locker room, and everyone else would follow. And I remember it was one day I didn't want to hear his voice. I didn't want to see him smile. I was just fed. I was just one of those days. I just want to come here, do my job, and get the heck out. And he just kept talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And I turn around and I'm like, is this what I have to look forward to for the rest of the year? And he looks at me with a smile on his face. He's like, oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And it was just like, okay, all right. Okay, this is what I have to deal with. And we became really good friends after that. But I wanted to kill him.
Well, he's taken that talking and talking and talking and right. Made some money out of it. So
absolutely. Absolutely. That's my guy.
All right. So we're so we're 1-4. But you could take a lot of out of this past game. I mean, can't you? And go, this team really does have a chance. I mean, even though we're 1-4, there's enough there. You've seen enough through 3 quarters to go, all right, we lost to a really good football team in overtime. Yeah, we probably should have beat them. But, I feel like with a few tweaks and, like we said, hate to use it as an excuse, but a little more health. Right. I feel like this team could probably match with any team in the NFL, given the right circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging the way they played the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. However, for them to turn this around, they have to go out and win within your division. For you to have a shot to even get to the postseason and getting guys back healthy. And if you can maintain and win within the division, as we all know, it starts there. You have a shot if you can start to get guys back healthy. Now, the last 2 weeks has been encouraging. I'm with you. I mean, anyone watching it, you have every right to be pissed off at certain situations of the game that happened last week, and the letdown of 19 points and so forth and so forth, so on and so forth. But it's encouraging. This team, watching them this past Monday, they don't look like a team that only won 1 game in 5 weeks. So very encouraging. I think They're getting closer every week. It's getting a little bit closer to putting it all together. I think if you can go out here and win this game, I think, in my opinion, they're expected to win this game against the Texans. And I think with everything they have going on that side in Texas, I think this is a great week for them to carry over that momentum, carry over that success offensively. Let's tighten some things up defensively. Let's continue to create some turnovers and protect the football and keep putting the ball in our playmakers' hands. Think we have a shot.
Yeah, but I want to caution all the listeners and viewers right now. If you think that we're just going to face up against Houston Texans without Deshaun Watson and just put the hammer down, you better go back and watch how they played the New England Patriots last week, because Davis Mills, oh my,
Yes.
he threw 70% completion percentage, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions against a Bill Belichick defense, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
And that puts a little bit of worry in me. I mean, I'll be honest, but you're right. You got to win your division games. And the Colts getting T.Y., maybe he plays. Is it coincidence that he comes back off of IR and starts practicing the week of the Texans game? I don't know about all that. Let's see.
I'm sure T.Y. had this day circled on his comeback tour. And I've been in that locker room when T.Y. has, something about the Texans, something about it. And I'm going to say a name that, he had a great career playing the cornerback position, Jonathan Joseph. Well, Jonathan Joseph was their lead cornerback years ago when I was there. And when I tell you T.Y. just separated himself as being one of the top tier receivers, he always had a great game against the Texans, man. Really did. And if we have a shot to have him back just in small doses, it's going to help this offense, because teams have to respect his speed. He still can run. You have to respect his the guy has hands like glue. Anything that touches his hands, he's able to pull it in. He's not that big of a guy. If you stood up next, I mean, you're freakishly tall, but like if any normal person stood next to him that was average height, I mean, the guy he's small, but he's got a heart of a lion, and we can have him back against these Texans. That would serve very well, and it would build up the morale of the team to have their one of the guys who've been there as long as anyone else has, from a player standpoint. But yeah, I'm with you. You can't walk in this game thinking this is going to be a cakewalk, because both of these teams are very familiar with each other, very familiar. And divisional games are always very tough to win. I noticed the home game. Listen, you mentioned it. Davis Miles are coming off a career day. Chris Moore, a receiver they brought up from practice squad against the Patriots and the Bill Belichick readily prepared defense. The guy had over 100 yards receiving. So they've had some explosive plays, and they lost by a game-winning field goal. It was a very close game. So those guys are taking that game as a measuring stick. Hey, we just competed with Bill Belichick, and now we're going to face a team that we're very familiar with. Regardless of Deshaun Jackson not being there, we can win. They're thinking they can win with the guys they have, and this is a statement game for them as well. They're going to walk into Lucas Oil and think, you know what, we can get these guys regardless if T.Y. is back. So this is going to be a dogfight. This is going to be this game could be either, in my opinion, will be really close, or it could be very lopsided towards leaning towards the Colts winning this football game. So you can't call it a trap game, because both teams have similar records, and
the same
both
record,
teams are going to the same record, right? The same record. So this is the division game. Both teams understand how important this game is for their record and for them to have potential hopes to play in the postseason.
It's amazing how fast in the NFL things can flip-flop. 5 years ago, the Colts and the Texans were battling it out to win division championships and get positions in the playoff. And now they're both sitting at 1-4, starting off the season. It's one of those situations that just kind of makes you scratch your head and go, only in the NFL, right?
Only in the NFL. I've been a part of it. You brought it up. I hate to go back and through memory lane, but 2014, that was a time where Andrew Luck, every year he was in the National Football League, he won one more. He got deeper into the playoffs. 2014 AFC Championship game. That summer, as you know, as well as most of the Colts listeners and viewers, Frank Gore joins the team and Andre Johnson. When I saw that trade made or that free agency pickup, I thought it was a shoe-in for us to play in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. But yet we finished 8-8, and next year didn't make the playoffs for two consecutive years, and Andrew Luck retired. It's so much that can happen from year in to year out, and for the Colts to be sitting here, I think you know what I do think the benefit of this, and we'll see as the season unfolds. Some of the young guys who've been on this football team have been walked into a great situation. These guys have won a ton of games and been in the postseason and never really dealt with adversity and really dig yourself out of a hole and what it means to go through it. They're fairly young. They have the right guys in place. They just got to finish football games, man. One game at a time, 1 week at a time, and you have to win within your division. You have to. I can't say that enough.
Well, that is true. Finishing a game is something that the Colts have had issues with the last 2 years. Last year, I mean, there were multiple games where they come out hot, and then heck, last year against the Ravens was pretty much an identical mirror to what we saw this year. The Colts dominated them the entire first half and only, gave up 3 points or something in the first, and then in the second half they came out. Lamar Jackson started throwing the football.
Right.
Now this year, the Colts stretched that to 3 quarters, not just 2, but the results were the same. The final results were the same. The Colts still walked out with a loss, gave up the lead, blah, blah, blah. And it's frustrating. It is very frustrating.
Yeah, man. It's frustrating to watch just a team that's so talented on paper that we thought we just didn't, this goes to show you how injuries affect your ball club and how continuity does matter. And when you have guys, and I was wrong, I can admit I was wrong. I thought this wouldn't be such a problem when you have Ryan Kelly out and Quentin Nelson out and your quarterback didn't see much of the preseason. And I thought these guys could gel together once they were together, once they were all healthy. But no, some things aren't all the same. It depends on where you are in your career, and those guys hadn't worked together. Now, this was a year, after a year of them playing together, yes, I lost that somewhere in my thought process. I forgot that. But it does matter to have that continuity. And unfortunately, health is a part of the game. Availability is your best way of winning. And I've always said this, all the good teams that make deep runs in the playoffs, that get to the postseason and ultimately win the Super Bowl, it's not necessarily about the best team on paper. It's about the healthiest team on paper. So this is one of those examples of it.
All right, so I'm going to throw something at you real quick with the Colts being 1-4, and they face. Now, it's hypothetical, so we're gonna look at schedules the next 4 weeks. Okay. Colts face the Texans, the Niners, the Titans, and the Jets. Okay, that's a lot. Niners, Titans, and Jets with the Texans.
Got it.
All right. So, if by some chance everything gels right, I feel like all 4 of those games are winnable games. Winnable. I'm not saying that it's something that you're going to, it's a guarantee. I'm saying it's a chance. Niners are a good team. Titans are a good team. The Jets, obviously, they got their own issues, just like the Texans. Wilson is I think one of the only quarterbacks right now in the NFL that legitimately have a shot at breaking Peyton Manning's rookie interception record. Okay,
that's hard to come by, but
yeah. Okay, now we go and look at the Titans schedule, who are sitting at 3-2 currently. This week they play the Bills,
Okay.
The Chiefs,
AFC,
then the Colts,
AFC. Okay.
and then the Rams.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. This is really gonna. Okay. This is really gonna come down to tiebreakers and division wins, and this has got very interesting because if the Colts can
Mhm.
go out and take care of business this weekend and win a division game, you get the 49ers, which I agree, it is a winnable game, but you have to beat the Titans.
Yeah.
You know, that's a
That's the
winnable.
key of that whole
Yeah.
thing. Is
Yeah. Right.
you got to beat your divisional game this
Right.
week with the Texans,
Right.
and you got to beat the Titans.
Right.
But
Yeah, moving into the second quarter of the season, that's going to be huge for you to get the Titans game.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, the Tennessee has the Rams coming up as they're going to get into the thick of their schedule, the meat of their
Mhm.
schedule. So, you know, that's a toss up. We don't know how that can potentially work out, but for the Colts, if they can take care of their business, wow, that looks very intriguing. That looks salvageable. That
it
with
does.
everything that happened with injuries and what happened, and now you're getting Ty is close to coming
Mhm.
back. Now we don't know if he's going to be full throttle or what have you, but that's a great piece to add on to your these next few weeks. But
But
that is
Nelson
definitely
might
doable.
be coming back, in another week. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another
Mm-hmm.
situation. And you got all these different guys that are starting to Braden Smith's getting healthier. So we might end up
Right.
having him on the tackle position. All
Right.
sorts of things that are it's
Kwity Paye
starting
is
to
coming back this week.
everything's falling in for the Colts right now to where it looks like they're
Look
starting to
at
get
you, man.
healthier.
Look, okay. Found some optimism and all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. This is I'm glad you brought that up. That is very, very this is important. But this game here,
Oh
that's
yeah,
what makes this
definitely.
game very important.
Yep.
Very important. I mean, they're all going to be important, but excuse me, you have to come out, you have to win this football game to give yourself a chance going into the second quarter of your season.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Oh
Definitely.
man.
You can't lose to a game that you're expected to win. You just can't.
Right.
And
Right.
especially it being a divisional game.
Because anything could happen.
Yeah.
Anything could happen within the division. We've talked at length about injuries. It could occur. Look at last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were 11-10-0 or 11-1, and heck, things start to fall apart. And so anything could happen here, but that's very encouraging.
It is, because if the Titans go 2-2 in that area, and the Colts go 4-0, Colts take their division lead.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
it's definitely doable.
It is definitely. So there's optimism, but it's a really slim, margin for error through first 4 weeks. And that's just through the first 4 weeks, because there's still plenty of season left to go.
Right.
But
right.
We legitimately by week 9 could be tied or, on the lead of the division, because our schedule is in our past, and the Titans have got theirs staring them right in the face. So,
yes, yeah, and that I think that will paint a clear picture of who this football team is, because we keep teetering back and forth. We're 1-4, but we see a much better football team, and we could be 3-2 as opposed to 1-4. The Rams game was very close, came down to the end against Baltimore. We could have won that one. I mean, they're teetering right there. It's like, what do we have to do to get over that hump? And so that's gonna for me. And you bring up a really, really, really smart point here. By that time in the season, we'll have a clear picture of who this football team is, and which guys are back, and will there be a run for the postseason? How are we looking within the division? Because every coach tells you you have to win your division to get to the postseason. And I'm sure Frank Wright is hammering that point down. No matter what has happened throughout this season, this is a division game. Something that the Texans hasn't done a ton of is beat the Colts in Lucas Oil. So they had that in their favor as well. So you bring up a really, really good point. And Carson Wentz. The guys that you lean on, the guys that are emerging, the Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor, these guys have to. You gotta bring your game to another level. You have to. You gotta play mistake-free football. You gotta lead from within, because 1-4 is tough. We talked about it before in the locker room. I've been in these locker rooms. Guys are, 1-4. You're in the first quarter of the season. Guys are still excited about the season. These next 4 weeks, if things don't turn the corner, those guys start to drop off slowly. Mentally, they start to get checked out, and now you have an even bigger problem. So it's sorry about the planes going overhead.
Oh, good. One thing before we end this is I want to say another thought for optimism is you were talking about Carson Wentz and this offense and how they're starting to gel. And it's not just those names it's the other guys that we said needed to step up, the Paris Campbells and the Mo Alley Cox. And okay. So like in the Ravens game, we were seeing Carson Wentz start to get that connection with Paris Campbell. We saw him start to get that connection with Mo Alley Cox in the Dolphins game.
Yeah.
And now I have a thunderstorm in my area, so I'm gonna have to be chasing it down with buckets because I have that bad roof that the construction company will have to come and they're scheduled to do my roof sometime next week, but that ain't helping me right now. But
I feel for you.
It happens. So I'm gonna have to cut this short here in just a second because it's pouring. But
got
it. Man. What's awesome is, like I said, offensively, this team is starting to look like it's gelling, and they're going to be getting some of their playmakers back. Defensively, we need some of those guys to step up, right? Like you're saying, your DeForest Buckners, your Xavier Rhodes, Xavier Rhodes need to step up. He was that guy, Kenny Moore and Darius. Darius is out there. On the line. Same with DeForest Buckner, but you know what
I don't like about this is one thing that's a pet peeve of mine. And I watch other linebackers throughout the league, and I had a coach approach me, and I'll make the point quick. I had a coach approach me years ago when obviously playing in Cleveland and things didn't go our way. And coaches watch the film. They watch, when you're watching the all 22, you can see everyone. And if an offense makes a big play on our defense, like I would have these terrible I had terrible body language. It was almost as if I was blaming someone for a big play, a teammate of mine. And a coach pulled me to the side. He's like, when you're a leader, people watch everything. They watch and your body language sucks. Like you have to do a better job of not, having better posture. And that's one of my pet peeves about Darius Leonard. Anytime there's a big play or whatever, he's throwing his hands up like, what the heck are we doing? And that trickles over to a guy that may be a practice squad guy, or a guy that may not be an all-pro, and they're getting, it comes off as negative energy. And that's the last thing you want to do defensively when you haven't been dominant at all. So there's nothing for you to do other than stop them from, having big gains on your defense. So that's my one pet peeve. And I know I kind of changed things up here, but that's my one pet peeve about Darius Leonard. Even though I think he's a phenomenal player, he's an emotional player. He leaves it all out there on the field. That's one area where I think it could help his ball club, just applying more positive energy if something like that happens.
Yeah, the energy that like you say, he's an emotional player. He plays with his emotion. Which allows him to make great plays. But at the same time, when you have that, like you said, when you got other guys, especially your practice squad guys or inexperienced or younger guys, you got to have to check it, when something doesn't go your way and you get frustrated yourself, that emotion and that energy can be something the team can feed off of. And that's definitely a positive thing, but it can also be that negative thing that you're talking about.
To pat myself on when I had that coach approach me, you know what I would do anytime something like that happened? If a big gain happened on Vontae Davis or something, or Darius Butler or any of the guys that I knew cared about getting it right and making the play, I would run up to him, hey man, you're all right. We're good. We're good. We'll stop next time. Don't worry about it. So you want positive reinforcement at that time. And the body language stuff and throwing hands, you know what that that flame fuels negativity and pointing fingers at each other. And I don't think for a team that's 1-4, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it, because if this thing doesn't turn the corners next half, that could snowball and get out of everyone's control. And when that happens, your season is over. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. He's a great player, and they'll get it fixed, and the offense will move the ball, and this team will start finishing games, and we'll have more positive things to talk about.
I hope so. I'm hoping that it turns around this week against the Texans. Well, I'm going to have to end this due to, we already discussed
go take
that.
care of you. Yeah.
Go take care. I appreciate you spending that extra an hour with me today. That's great. That's great. Yeah. And hopefully next week when we get together, it'll be more of a positive situation.
I'm counting on it.
Yep. All right. Until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That was DeQuell Jackson. You were listening to Bleav in Colts. Go Colts.